Happy Spooktacular IC Topic Chat, everybody. Today is, in fact, Halloween. It's October 31st. And so I love to celebrate Halloween in our town in Edwardsville, Illinois, where I am right now. We have, uh, according to people in Edwardsville, I don't know if anybody's ever fact checked this, but the largest Halloween parade on Halloween every year. And so it will happen tonight at 6:30, and we'll see all kinds of crazy fun things and lots of candy, more than anybody should ever consume. We're going to be sitting directly above where I am right now on the rooftop watching the parade. Don't tell the people I lease from, because I don't think we're allowed to do that, but I think we'll get away with it anyway. Today we're talking about spectacular horror stories, and so I'm going to present four for the purposes of this video that we're doing today, and then I'll stop recording, and then we've got six additional individuals who are going to come on and tell their stories. The point of all of it is to talk about these spooky things that have happened to you, these horror stories, however you want to put it, and but frankly, to talk about what happened as a result and how you resolved it or what you learned from that experience. And so I'm going to get into it right now, and I'm going to talk about the case of the decapitated principal investigator. Ooh. So here, this is the situation. We had a program that they reached out to us. We helped them write an evaluation section for this proposal. It was super exciting. Like all the people involved with this project were just engaged. We came up with this amazing idea. They came up with this amazing idea. I put together a program evaluation. It went out to the National Science Foundation. High stars. Everybody loved it. Came back. But then this happens to us far too frequently. Um, the people who wrote the grant in maybe March, when we found out in like September, they left over the summer. And so it got passed down to the next principal, to somebody else who wasn't even involved with the program. And this has happened to me at least three different times, where it's the people who become the principal investigator are kind of like begrudgingly taking on this program that they had no involvement with. And so we suffer from a lack of like inspiration on their part. They feel like it's something shoved upon them. And so it becomes complicated, because honestly, they oftentimes don't even know that what they're supposed to be doing, because they don't read the proposal very carefully. They go, oh, I got to do a scholarship program, great, but they don't carry out all the rest of the programs. So the lessons we learned from this decapitated principal investigator situation is, first of all, make sure you have a fidelity checklist. We do that frequently, and we put that into our evaluation plans. But that way we can start up the conversation with the new individual. And oftentimes when you have people who move along, this also happens, principal investigators come and go during the project, but make sure they're aware of what they're supposed to be doing and what we're basically keeping an eye on that they should be completing. So we start that way. Um, we oftentimes help them, if we've been involved with the project for a while, with that transition and that conversation. But in many ways, it's difficult, because you're so excited to work with that person who wrote it, but now they're no longer there. And hopefully you find somebody who has equal level of enthusiasm. It frequently doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. I try and couch it like the idea, like, this is a great opportunity for you. If you haven't had a National Science Foundation project before, welcome. You just got one. You didn't have to go through the trouble of writing it, and now it's yours. And this will give you an opportunity to create a track record, and you can apply for more NSF funding, and you should hypothetically get some points for having been a successful PI. Try not to be an unsuccessful PI, because they have a memory. All right, next one. The case of the superstitious seance program meetings. This is a situation where we get a project going, and for reasons we don't ever understand, because the way we operate at Goshen Consulting, we're always operating that we want to be your partners. We want to be your coworkers. We want to be there next to you. We're not here to find your problems and report it to the whatever agency. If there are problems, we want to help you identify them early on. But we want to work with you so that you understand whatever's happening, and that you can course correct and do something. But sometimes we have a couple projects currently where they've gone into hiding or secrecy, and we don't know what they're doing, and we get like data every once in a while, or they don't respond to um, our emails. So we have to continue to follow up and stay consistent. So what we've done is we've stayed consistent, stayed professional, um, asked on a regular basis when they can meet, whether we can connect around their fidelity. That's the main thing, and set expectations. It doesn't always work out. It's not always ideal, but this is particularly the case when you're working on a compulsory or a mandatory evaluation that has to happen, and they don't always see the value of our work. One thing I'm trying to steer away from these compulsory evaluations where it feels like they're coming to us because they have to, not so much that they want to, and they understand the value of our work. All right, next one. The case of the fiscal phantom. So you're seeing a lot of ghosting. We actually had on schedule a conversation about ghosting, and some of this is part of that. Now, the ghosting that we were originally talking about was ghosting for where you develop a proposal, they seem so excited to get it, and then it just goes completely silent. Well, this is not that kind of ghosting. This is the ghosting where you send an invoice and they don't pay it. And you're like, when are you ever going to pay this invoice? Um, and so we have a process where we first where we follow up 30 days after we send it if we haven't been paid, because we expect to get paid within 30 days. We play a good cop, bad cop. A lot of you guys know Emily Johnson, who is our office manager at Goshen, and she's super sweet. If it comes across in her emails that she's super sweet, that's because she is in fact super sweet. She's a great person, and you don't know you would do anything for her. So she sends the first one, and everybody's like, usually they're pretty good at getting back to her, and we assume best intentions with most of our clients. We oftentimes are working with a faculty member and an academic department who may not do invoices at first. And usually the first couple invoices, it's kind of rocky. We don't get things right away because they don't understand how to submit their invoices for payment. There's just a process that they haven't figured out. But we follow up. But after 60 days, we will stop work. And we also have put into all of our contracts, and we talk about this at the beginning when we initiate projects, but we also remember to put in our contracts payment penalties. So what I've learned, because we put in 5% per month, which I've never charged anybody a payment penalty, by the way, but what we've learned is from the lawyers on the other side is what's generally typical is 1.25% per month after 60 days. So if we invoiced on October 1st, and so we're now on October 31st, tomorrow I would start a follow up with people. And if they hadn't paid by December 1st, which I guess that's 2 months, it's not exactly 60 days, but anyway, 2 months, we would charge a 1.25% charge. And frankly, I would waive it. I don't really want anybody to pay a penalty. I just want them to pay on time so I don't have to worry about this. All right, last one I'm going to do today. The case of the fortune telling evaluator. So if you were here 2 years ago, I did all the previous 3 slides for a Halloween special we did then. This is a brand new one. In fact, this is a brand new one from last Friday. We were in Portland, and a local university reached out to us and said, hey, we need somebody to come in and take over this evaluation. The evaluator left, and they made it sound like the evaluator just completely dumped them. And we need to have this done by the end of this calendar year, which is December 31st, 2024. And, yellow flags go up, red flags go up. I'm starting to say, what's the story here? So I looked into it. I was very professional, said, we're at a conference, ironically local to you, but anyway, I'm not going to just jump in a cab and go over and see these folks. But we followed up with them, and I learned that it was one of our ICTIG colleagues who was that evaluator. I had an opportunity to read. Well, they shared more than I would probably want somebody to share of my stuff, but I saw their letter to the institution, and it was actually sounded just like one of the previous horror stories where there was infighting between co-PIs and PIs, co-principal investigators and principal investigators, effectively the leaders of the project. And they stopped talking to each other and they stopped talking to the evaluator. And the evaluator is sitting there going, how am I supposed to do my job unless you give me data, unless you give me access to your students? And the people who were getting in the middle of all this, who were losing out on all of this, were the students. Anyway, so I resolved this by saying, I don't need to get in the middle of this because I just have a bad, eerie feeling. I'm fortune telling that this is going to turn out to be a big mistake. So we stepped away quietly. We said, hey, that's just not a good thing for us to do. We could have probably done it, but I don't know if that would have been a good idea to step in there. I think there's just far too much kind of drama in there, and I prefer low drama. So anyway, I could tell that was going to go the wrong way, so I stayed away. So here's 5.5 pieces of advice to avoid getting spooked. First, should set your expectations. You want to do it verbally in an early meeting so they understand what to expect. Make sure it's also in your contracts. Some of those expectations are, we expect that here's the schedule of data collection. We expect you to stay on schedule and to, communicate with us if there's going to be a problem. We don't want to be surprised. We don't want to nag you. The last thing any of us want to do is constantly have to follow up and it's going to feel like we're nagging you. But invariably it does happen when every once in a while. But if you set your expectations, there should be no surprises on their part that you're following up. Document. So if you see things starting to go the wrong direction, start keeping notes. Whether it be your emails, you can print them as a PDF and put them in a file. Make sure you know what you're doing. And with that, make sure you're staying professional. Don't get mad. Don't illustrate emotion. You are a professional. And if you start to show this like emotional side of yourself, I don't know how that would resolve itself, but it's probably not going to go well. If you stay calm and professional, this should all work its way out. Again, make sure you're assuming best intentions. We are a community of practice that we meet every Thursday, but I mean, beyond this small community of practice, there is the entire independent consulting topical interest group. Seek help from your colleagues. It's very usual that people send out notes to all of us and say, what am I supposed to do in this situation? This just happened. And when I say notes, what I mean is make sure you're signed up for the emails that go out. So there's that community, I shouldn't remember what it's called, but that community board, the message board that we have through AEA. So make sure you're signed up for those and you're connecting with people. And if it's a private thing, make sure you have a short list of people that you can reach out to. Like I would reach out to Becky, or to Kurt, or to Jesse Metcalf with any of my kind of specific problems, and others, depending on what it is. Plan for all these things happening, and make sure you've to the degree you can, make sure this is included in your contract. So again, if people aren't paying on time, you've got a late payment penalty, right? That's in there. There are other things that could happen along those lines. One thing I didn't talk about that recently happened was we had a project funded from March 2023, and it came through just this last September. And they're like, isn't this great? And I said, yeah, it would be great if it had gotten funded on time. But now it's like a year and a half later, and the budgets we were putting in March 2023 are no longer in effect. So I had to basically say, I need 50% more. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but the reality is we were underbidding at the time, even for at that time. And then we had inflation. And so we can't do it anymore. And so what I'm resolved to do is make sure that's in our memorandums of understanding. Those are things we put out when we're writing a proposal with people before they get funded, when we're like the subcontractor to their principal project. And so they should be aware that if it's going to take more than a year to get funded, then you can't expect our budgets are still accurate. Anyway, all right. And finally, 5.5, don't be afraid to fire your client. seriously, if your client is becoming more of a headache to you and they're not following through on the expectations that you've set forward, and you've been professional, you've documented, you've done everything before, you can walk away from a project. I know it feels painful, particularly if you're down to the point where you need that money. But if you're at a point where you don't absolutely need it and you just would rather walk away and not have that headache, it's okay to do that. Make sure that's in your contract too. I make sure in my contracts I can walk away from any project that we're contracted to with, I think it's a 30 or a 60-day notice. And then we will wrap everything up and we'll bill for our time. Who knows whether they pay it, but that's another story. But um, if I want to walk away from a client, I'll walk away from every client. We've talked about this in contracts. If they put in um, a clause where they can cancel the contract, make sure you have that same right to cancel your contract with them as well, or that contract with them as well. All right, so we've got a couple upcoming sessions. Doesn't want to go to the next. There we go. Next week, Jesse Metcalf is going to join me, and we're going to talk about the core topic of time tracking. Becky Garrow, who's here today, and she's my co-host. She's going to be doing rapid fire FAQs, and she put out a survey, which I think we'll make sure is included in the email that goes out to everybody, and she'll probably drop it in the chat here if she hasn't already. So make sure you fill that out so she has some material to work from. And then I'm excited to have Nikki Bowman, Kim Leonard, and Madeline Brandt talking about social entrepreneurship, basically the kind of like taking what we do and giving back to the community. And you can see the other ones that are still there. The Meet the Pros on December 12th is going to be fantastic. It's a 2-hour event, so be sure to schedule some time for that. And that's usually one of the best topics, best sessions of the year, because we have 8 sessions going on kind of at the same time. And then we kind of stop every 15 minutes and we go to a different session. So that's how that'll work. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now. So everybody out in YouTube land, we'll see you later. And everybody else, stick around so you can hear the rest of the stories.